Okay, so that test drive went really good, except for one minor problem where I was having to pull the clutch pedal back to get good tension on the clutch. So what I did was installed a secondary clutch spring, and I could probably really do away with my original one now, because this one goes right on the pivot of the clutch, right to the frame. The pedal is very stiff, but I think it'll be worth it to have a nice tight belt. And so I think I should solve that problem. So it's been about 2 weeks since that video, actually. I bought a project truck, and that has been taking up a good amount of my time, but I really want to get this thing done. It's been a 6-month project. I'm so close to the finish. But I haven't been really good about keeping a list of things that need to be done in here, so I'm really trying to just brainstorm today and see what else I need to do before I paint it. Because once I paint it, I can't really do that many modifications. I mean, I could do a bunch, but can't change the body or anything like that without making a whole bunch of work. So one thing I do know I need to do is I bought some accessories over here. We had the cutest little trailer hitch, weld-on trailer hitch I've ever seen. So this is like a 1.5 inch, I think, trailer hitch. This is what you would see on like a Prius and stuff. I figured it would work pretty well on this. I would like this thing to be able to move a trailer or, just do whatever. We also got some little D-rings here. These are 3/8 diameter ones. Yes, 3/8, so they work pretty good scale-wise as well. The only issue is I was going to weld them right to here, but their like mounting thing here is just almost bigger than the tubing itself. It's going to get in the way of the body, so I have to figure out what I want to do there. Maybe I could just manipulate these a little bit, make them smaller. I don't know. We're going to do the sketchy thing and try and compress them. That should be enough. Already got everything tacked up here. Pretty happy with it. I'm gonna just leave it tacked up for a couple hours here while I work on other stuff, just to make sure I love it. But it should work fine. We'll also throw some guts down here, of course. And that should be good. So that is another thing checked off the list. Now this back tailgate panel still looks pretty plain. I was thinking about throwing 2 more of those amber little marker lights in here. That would help a little bit, but it's still a huge empty panel. Originally, I was thinking of throwing a mini jerry can back here or a spare tire or something, but I don't want any more weight in the back of this thing than I have to. So if you have any ideas on what I could do to take up the space back here, I'm definitely gonna plasma cut out the name for this thing and probably tack it on here, or maybe even put a license plate spot. I don't know. I think I have finally. It took me 6 months of working on this thing to decide on a name. I think I finally decided I'm going to call it a Meep, just for miniature Jeep. It's definitely been used before for other stuff, but no one's like officially named their mini Jeep that I can tell. So yeah, this thing's going to be a Meep from now on. Kind of sounds funny, and it's easy to roll off the tongue, I guess. So all right, working on stripping this thing down here. Went ahead, threw some supports in there, and then braced up the back of the trailer hitch. Also did a gusset over there, of course. And really, I think we're done on the chassis. I think we're done on the body too. I got to weld that crossbar in there. But overall, I'm not too worried. If I have to make modifications to the body, or the chassis, I'm just going to paint this black with spray paint. So it's not going to be a big deal to have to go back and change it. So we're going to call this good. And I think we're going to start stripping it down for paint. We're going to finish up the last couple things for the body and finish preparing out for paint as well. So I'm going to go ahead and gut this thing down. Then I bought some materials to build a sketchy paint booth, so we're going to do that today too. So I'll keep you guys updated. Alrighty, we built the world's sketchiest paint booth with some $5 sheeting from Lowe's. Got the frame in here, just wanted to make sure it would fit before I finish up. This thing's covered in grinding dust, so I shouldn't even have it in here, but we'll clean that all up. A lot of this steel needs to be ran over with a wire brush at least, before we go ahead and paint it, but I think I have just about everything off of it that I'm going to take off when I go to paint. I will probably pull the wheels and tires, but I think everything else could stay pretty much and get paint on it. I will tape up the coilovers in the front and probably a few other things, but for the most part, this thing is ready for paint once we grind it down. So pretty happy. Just put the booth in the corner of the garage here, so the rest of the garage is now a mess, but this should help out a lot with containing the overspray. I don't want to cover all my junk in this garage and overspray. So I'm going to get to grinding and cleaning this thing up. I also have a sheet that I'll lay on the ground before I start painting. And yeah, hopefully today we can at least get this primed and probably even painted. So that'll be awesome. Alrighty, got the frame loaded in here and broken down as far as it's going to go. Got everything I'm kind of worried about getting covered in paint covered up. I got to wipe this thing down in acetone, or actually paint thinner is what I bought. And then we're going to go ahead and blow some primer on it. And we'll see how it goes. It's covered in oil and gunk up front, but I didn't want to power wash it and start rusting or anything since it's bare metal. So we'll just have to live with it. It's just a frame after all, so it doesn't matter that much. So we'll see what happens. All right, we got it tilted up here and we got the bottom side painted, so we just gotta let that dry and then we'll start squirting on some black. All right, it's the next morning. Let that dry all night, so let's hop in here and see if it did dry in time. It seems like it did. Awesome. So like I said, it didn't turn out the best. I didn't spend hours prepping it. I just kind of did a once over with a wire brush and some hand sandpaper. So there's going to be some spots and flecks and stuff, but 99% of this is going to be covered by the body anyway, so it's mostly just about protection. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So now I need to get this thing, get the wheels and tires back on it and get it out of the booth and figure out how I want to start with the hood or the body. I'll probably set that up on, I need some sort of sawhorses or something. I could hang it from the ceiling, but then we'll have ropes in the way. So we'll figure that out. All right, we got it out in the sunshine. Miss Piggy's out here too with the cone of shame. But yeah, it looks pretty good in the sunshine. I mean, about what I was expecting. Let's figure out how to paint the body now. Right, Piggy? Alrighty. Got the underside of the hood outside today, and we are priming it up. Figured it's a nice day out, so I might as well do it outside instead of in the sketchy paint booth. So I'll let this dry, flip it over, and we'll prime the outside. And I'm very curious to see. I'm using Rust-Oleum filler and primer. So I'm curious to see how it'll deal with all the imperfections and weld joints and stuff. Alrighty, I have been working away hard at this. I have never done any kind of body work before, so don't judge me too hard, but this is the hood. Primed it twice, did a bunch of filler work as you can see, and some glazing. That's the brown stuff. Sanded off smooth, there's no ridges or anything. Feels really good. We'll see. I'm very curious. So I was hoping to use that seam sealer on that joint there, but I think I'll just make more of a mess than if I just leave it. So you'll still be able to see the individual weld beads, and I probably should go in there and grind that all smooth, but it's just not worth all the effort, I don't think. So we are going to prime this one again, and then the hood should be ready for paint, which I picked up the paint color today, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to take it outside because it's filthy dirty in here from all my sanding, and throw some primer on it, and I guess start on the body then. All right, we got a big moment getting ready to happen. We are all prepped and ready for our first coat of top coat. Little sneak peek here, we got our first coat on. I always go with a really, really light first coat. That was a little heavier than I like, but you can still see there's plenty of gray poking through. So We'll let that dry for a while. The sketchy paint booth here is working pretty good. We have one fan exhausting here, and it kind of pulls a nice vacuum to seal everything up. All right, we got our second coat, and this is what I'm going to call my top coat. And we let it dry for about 30 minutes. It's just barely tacky. I'm going to go ahead and throw some Rust-Oleum Clear on it. I'll do probably 4 pretty heavy coats of this every 10 minutes. Well, 1 coat every 10 minutes. And then this thing should be done. Looks pretty good. I really like the color, but it is pretty orange peely. But I'm really not that concerned about it. As long as it's nice and even, that's all I really care about for this project. So while the hood is in there drying, it has done all of its clear coat now. I've been out here prepping the tub now. Did kind of a wide swath of very thin coat of Bondo because I have a weld seam that goes all the way across there with a small hump. I knocked it down with grinders and stuff, but just wanted to try and make it look really good. Then we have 2 joints here and here. And right there, I meant to actually throw some Bondo and kind of forgot, but waiting for this to dry, I can hit that. There's just 2 little specks of porosity or air pockets that came out with grinding, so I can hit that later. But I just kind of wait for this to dry, trying to get this done before this weekend is the goal. So that's why I'm doing kind of this at the same time as painting. While I mentioned painting, I'll give you a little sneak peek of what this thing looks like after all of its coats of clear. So that's 5 coats of clear on top of 2 coats of paint on top of like 2.5 coats of primer. So I'm gonna let it sit here and dry for 24 hours. It's about 75 degrees today, so I think it should dry out pretty good, but I'm not gonna try and touch it before tomorrow, that's for sure. Alrighty, it's the next day. It's been 24 hours. Let this thing dry out, and looks pretty good, but you can see so many imperfections under this paint. I mean, I don't know how much it'll pick up on camera, but all the little, I mean, these are used fenders. This is a used portion of the hood off that Cub Cadet, so there's little dents and dings and old paint ridges and lows and grinder marks and all kinds of things. But for what this thing is, I'm pretty happy. I mean, the paint itself turned out really good. That was all just a matter of the amount of prep work and time I put into it. So, good lesson there. I'm impressed with how well the weld looks, where I didn't grind it down or anything at all. It painted pretty nicely, so I'm happy with that. But all the areas that I filled, I mean, there's a ridge here, but the areas that I did spend some effort on look pretty good. I wish I would have spent a little more time smoothing this out, but you live and you learn. So, alrighty, we finally got the tub in here. You can see inside of there, I did a lot of bed lining earlier, just kind of the first couple coats of it. I'm gonna finish it off right when I'm done painting the outside, and I have my first coat of color on it. This thing has a lot more imperfections on it compared to the front end, so I have kind of low expectations, but we'll see. So I need to put on one more coat once this dries a little bit more, and then throw a bunch of clear coat on it. Then after that, the last thing I have to paint is the dashboard, which is going to be a graphite color, I think. Maybe black, I don't know, we'll see. But I am really hoping to be done this project soon. I'm a little over a week invested into just the paint and body work of this, and it is getting boring at this point. I mean, the painting part's fun, but I'm just ready to be done and see this thing all together. So keep you guys updated. Also, in between coats of paint on the body, we have some miscellaneous little parts out here that gotta go black. And then we have all of our wheels, which are in the process of going black. Now, I really should have broken these down and painted them without the tires. I don't like overspray on tires, but these tires are all pretty old, and I was worried if I started breaking them down that they were never gonna seal back up again. So I taped them off, and then I had a little stencil. I just kind of put it around it while I was spray painting. So I'm sure there will be a little bit of overspray on it. We can always steel wool it off or something. I think black should really pop with this tan. We'll see. Anybody need a worm? The paint turned out pretty good. That was 2 coats of black and 3 coats of clear. The frame is just paint, no clear coat. I'm not gonna worry about it here. Kinda wish I would have painted the shocks now, but I'm not too worried about it. You won't really see them that much. So yeah, that's all done. Now I just have to wheel it through the rain up into the garage, but first I'm gonna tear out our paint booth and make some space, I think. So the body turned out pretty good. We got the paint booth torn down here. That's pretty easy. We will have to do another coat of bed liner to cover up all my overspray, which I knew was coming. And I was okay with that because I knew I needed to paint this top rail anyway. So yeah, I think the hood turned out a lot better than the body. You could see a ton of imperfections, but oh well. But I still need to make some more room in here if I want any hope of getting that frame in here. All right, we battled the rain and got the body in, or the frame in here. And we are just about ready to set this thing on. Okay, you can look at the front for me. There we go. Sorry, my tripod's kind of giving up the ghost on me, but we got it slung in there. We also went ahead and installed the jack shaft before I put it in there. Try and get that as level as possible, and then greased every Zerk fitting I found on this thing. So I'll get that bolted down, and we'll move on. Really, final piece. Oh, yeah, that looks awesome. So we have plenty of things to finish up still, but man, am I stoked on how this thing looks. The front end paint definitely went on a lot better than the body, but the body's not bad at all. But the black and tan, I am really happy with. The reason I picked this color is 2 reasons. Number 1, tan, it's a light color, pretty forgiving for paint imperfections, which I have plenty of. And number 2, my first ever Jeep I had was a 1989 Jeep Wrangler, so that was a YJ, and it was very close to this color, and I had black, like Barnett, whatever you call them, steel wheels, the really cheap ones with 33s on it. So this thing is kind of like a mini-me to that, except for it's not a YJ, but that's kind of the 2 reasons I picked this color. Now I may end up doing some stripes on it. I was thinking kind of retro, like orange and red or something. I don't know. I don't know what pattern I'd use or anything like that. I'm not going to do it today or in this video, but in the future, I'm definitely thinking about it because it is a lot. It's kind of bare, but I still really like it. I'm pumped. So, we need to get the turn signal marker lights put in. We got wiring to do still, a battery back there to mount. It's not quite finished, but I can see the end. That's for dang sure. All right, it's been a few days since my last clip there, and I've already messed up 2 spots on the paint with the wing nuts here, which I should have known to grab some little protectant, which I'll do in the future. And then I was putting some fuel in it the other day, and I accidentally dribbled some, and it just wore the clear coat right off right away there. So thankfully it just kind of looks like a muddy stain, not that big of a deal. But you'll see this thing is a mess of wiring tools, and that is because I banged out all of the wiring in one night. Well, actually really 2 nights. I didn't film any of it at all, just kind of did it. So as you remember, our battery's down there. We ran heavy 6-gauge wire that I got on Amazon. Runs to a solenoid that is mounted on the back side of that. You can see the 2 mounting bolts. So that kind of takes care of the starter wiring. And then I installed a fuse panel right there, which looks like an absolute nightmare right now, but it is kind of controlled chaos. We ran a nice heavy ground from the battery, or from the motor block to the bottom of the fuse panel. Nice heavy power wire up there. And then all of our switches have nice fused power. Even the starter lights, all that. So we also installed an electric fuel pump over there next to the motor. So this is electric fuel pump, running lights, headlights, 4-wheel drive, and this is actually the kill switch. And I want to kind of ask your guys' opinion what I should do there, because This motor doesn't need any power to it to run, just power to the starter. So to kill it, you have to ground it out, which I have hooked up to this switch right now. So to kill it, you actually have to lift up and do that. Now in like a panic situation, I don't really like that. I wish it was reverse, but I can't think of any way to reverse it to ground it out. Because when you flip the switch up, grounds it, yeah. So anyway, any ideas there would be greatly appreciated. And then our starter here, I just did a push button. So I have not tested this thing yet. I haven't really tested any of the wiring yet. So you guys are going to get to see if I succeeded or failed. So we have our battery hooked up. I just did that. And let's hit the starter button. Oh, that works. Okay. And there's our kill. What else can we try here? Let's do running lights. Awesome. Our front 2 marker lights work, or running lights, whatever you want to call them. And our rear lights also work. So these lights are capable of running lights, turn signals, and brake lights. Right now I just have them hooked up for the running signals. Eventually I may do turn signals and brake lights on this thing, but I'm not worried about it now. So this should be, that's fuel pump. That should be headlights, and they click on. Those are nice and bright little LEDs. That's awesome. Okay, let's flick those guys off. 4-wheel drive, I don't think I'll be able to tell at all, but yeah, there's no way to tell that without it driving. And then the fuel pump, that clicks on, and I'll show you guys where I put that. That sits right there. Now, it wasn't necessary, but I did find the other day, even on flat ground, when that tank gets low, it was struggling to pull fuel up, obviously, because just gravity. So I figured definitely worth throwing an electric pump on. I'm not going to run it all the time, only when I know I need it, if the tank's getting low or if I'm climbing hills or whatever I may be doing. But yeah, did a pretty good job of tucking the wiring away. Got a P-clamp to the floor. This is a whole mess of extra stuff back here, but pretty well hidden away. All the starter wiring, everything is run under the floor. I do wish I would have mounted that solenoid in the frame itself, because right now I have it so you'd have to unbolt that solenoid from the body to get the body off. And I'm still really trying to make it as easy as possible to get this body on and off. I also, for the hood, used some cheap, they were cheap, but hopefully they're good quality quick connects that I got on Amazon. They're supposed to be waterproof. So it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. You got to kind of connect them back behind there, but it makes it so you can disconnect the wiring quickly to get the hood off. Not super quick, but a lot quicker than cutting the connections. So yeah, that's awesome. That is one more thing checked off the list. So now that the wiring is complete, I have some new bearings and seals for these front hubs. I don't know if you noticed, but these wheels were covered in oil from these hubs. Probably won't show that. There's plenty of videos out on YouTube of guys doing it. I'll probably even watch one. Replace that. The carburetor was leaking really, really badly on me the other day. That inlet is just a plastic inlet that broke, so we'll throw one on there. I've got one coming tomorrow afternoon. And the belt was giving me a little bit of a fit. I just need to work on adjusting it. And then hopefully we will have this thing outside for some actual glamour shots and pretty soon be testing it. All right, so I've been plugging away here at replacing those hub seals. So to do that, you have to pull the tie rod, the bottom A-arm, pull this away, pull the axle shaft out the back. There is a bearing back there to replace, a seal in the back of this housing, and then there's a seal in the back of this housing, and an O-ring on the hub. But I wanted to show you guys kind of the 4-wheel drive setup on this thing. So from what I understand, this is it. And this is some sort of magnetic clutch. When it engages this axle shaft, which is keyed, with the hub, providing you 4-wheel drive. And it's actually a pretty simple system, I think. I haven't really dug into the electrical component in I don't know what you would call this aluminum piece, the strut, I guess. But this end of things seems to be pretty easy to service and pretty cheap to replace. I think I saw this whole thing for like 30 bucks online. So works for now, and I'm definitely going to keep it. Now has all new bearings and seals, and we'll top it off with fresh oil. So I was kind of dreading this project, but it's going pretty good so far. So after throwing a fresh carburetor on this thing and figuring out the rest of the hub debacle, replacing the seals and bearings, it was ready to finally load this thing up on the truck for the first time and get it ready for its first test drive ever. But you guys will have to come back next week to see that actually happen. So keep an eye out for the video. Thank you guys for watching.